Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Cohen, for holding this hearing. And of course, thank you all for being here with us today. Again, Mr. Langer, I am glad that you were able to attend today to speak with us about the issues that RDU Airport and so many others across the country are facing. Thank you for detailing your runway project's long, sordid story. It goes without saying that it shouldn't take 7 years to get environmental approval to rebuild a deteriorating runway. Looking back on your experience, what do you think the FAA and Congress could do differently to move important projects like this ahead more quickly and more cost effectively?
Thank you, Congressman Foushee. Thank you very much for that question. That's a great question. I will tell you that the thing that continues to stick out for me is the environmental process and the timeliness of going through that environmental process. And I'm going to kind of try to explain kind of in layman's terms. But if you think about the environmental process being kind of two phases, the first phase is what I call the preliminary phase. And there's a whole bunch of things that the FAA asks us to do in terms of reports and justification before we even begin the environmental documentation phase of it. And that's kind of what I call the execution phase. So as part of the reauthorization, Section 783, which now established very specific timelines for completing an EIS, that was fantastic. It's great to have a timeline for that phase of the program. But that preliminary phase still doesn't have specific timelines. And this is an area that I think maybe Congress could weigh in a little bit. Let me give you an example. When we started the EIS process, trying to figure out whether or not we were going to do an EA or EIS, back in 2017, the FAA asked us to actually do a white paper on that, come up with a recommendation. Should it be an EA or EIS? Spent months putting that together, lots of money, only to come back and find out that the FAA was not in support of that. We then had to sign a reimbursable agreement to the tune of $500,000 to actually pay for staff to go perform this EA EIS. Further down the line, they asked for further business justification regarding our proposed runway length. Report, study, report, study, report, study before the clock even begins. And so we finally decided to provide them an alternative, and the alternative was a hybrid model where if we didn't agree on the runway length, maybe we would pay for the 1,500 feet that they didn't agree with, and the 10,000 feet would be eligible. That was denied as well. And we finally got to the point where we said, we need to move forward, and we moved forward in January of 2021. That process took 4 years to just start the clock. So maybe a recommendation as you move forward, that maybe what airports can do, if there's a project already on your approved ALP, which our runway was, simply sending a notice to the FAA, at which point in time they've got 30 days to decide whether or not this is going to be an EA or EIS. So we have some sort of certainty in the beginning portion of this phase to get this project moving in terms of the environmental review process. So that's something that I think we learned as a result of this, and something that we think Congress could weigh in on.
Thank you for that. Mr. Sutton, you've highlighted today the on-the-job difficulties that ramp workers face every day. The airport tarmac is undeniably noisy. You battle the elements, including extreme heat in some parts of the country, and you can't exceed the carrier's targeted aircraft turnaround times. We tend to forget that ramp workers play a role in commercial air travel because travelers do not interact with them directly. But the reality is that countless travelers rely on baggage handlers. When you consider the duties they perform in such a noisy, congested environment, we can see that this work can quickly become dangerous. Can you talk to us a little more about the safety concerns you have seen firsthand as a ground worker yourself?
Yes, ma'am, and thank you. So, firsthand knowledge, as a crew chief that used to work on the ramp, the crew, you would get notifications of, say, an aircraft swap or some kind of a change or diversion. And then immediately you have this clock running in your head where you have X amount of time to get the whole process done. Sometimes, because policies and procedures aren't always thought out, sometimes some of the policies and procedures that are mapped out don't actually match the assignment that you have to do. People tend to cut corners or put themselves at risk by doing things that are not normal. And we would like for some consideration for the process. The operation is the operation, we understand that, but there are things that happen on a day-to-day basis, and the airline industry is time crucial. And a lot of times, trying to do what you normally do, even though there's a change in the operation, does put safety at risk. So we try to look at ways of coming up with policies that actually understand the process when it changes, something that secures at least some form of safety.
Thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. I yield.